This is Lonnie Bowman. I want to share with you this today a couple of stories that were told to me 35 or 40 years ago by my mentors. And the first story is about a person that had the desire to become wealthy, become rich. So this person purchased a mine claim out in Oklahoma City and began to search for gold. And he done this for years, searching. But every day when he would take off for lunch, he would hitch his horses up to his wagon and go to town for lunch. And every day the people would look for him to come because it was a habit that he would be to town and eat and go back searching for gold. And one day he finally struck it rich and became one of the wealthiest citizen in that town. And he bought himself a brand new Cadillac, beautiful Cadillac. And he would continue to go to town even after he had struck gold and was rich in his new Cadillac for lunch. But when he would come to town, everybody would stop and look and just stare at him. And the reason they stared at him, it wasn't the fact that the car wasn't pretty. The car was a beautiful Cadillac. But he had his horses hitched to the car and was pulling the car as he always had with his wagon. He never did learn how to drive the car, nor did he realize that he had 300 horses under the hood of that Cadillac instead of two. You know, that story has always stuck with me based on the untapped potential that we all have inside of us. Uh, there's another story I want to share. This story is pertaining to, let's call them gods with a small g. And they was creating the landscape of humanity. In doing so, they had a great gift that they did not want humanity to discover. So they talked among themselves and tried to figure out what can they do with this great gift that mankind will never find it. And one said to the other, so I'll tell you what we can do with it. Let's take it and put it in the deepest ocean that man will never be able to discover this great gift. And they thought for a minute, and one said, so no, we can't do that. We can't put it in the deepest ocean because man will eventually one day learn how to dive and build a submarine to go to the depth of the ocean. And that one was right. We have learned how to do that. And then they thought again. Another said, I tell you what we're going to do with it. Instead of putting it in the depth of the ocean, let's take it and put it in the farthest reach of the universe. Let's take it and put it on the moon. Man will never get to the moon to find this great gift. And they thought for a minute and said, no, we can't do that. He said, why can't we do that? He said, well, because man would learn eventually how to build spaceships and travel to the moon and to the distant part of the universe. And they would find this great gift. And they said, well, what can we do with it that man will never discover this great gift? And they pondered and thought And one said, I got it. He said, I tell you what we're going to do with it. We're going to put it within man himself. So man would spend all of his life looking for greatness and opportunities and success and wealth, all that on the outside, never realizing that whatever he or she desire in life, that it comes from the inside, not the outside. And so it was. They place all of the potential in each and every person to become, to have, to be, to do, to enjoy the fullness of life. And it is found within each one of us. It is our potential for greatness. Here's another story. This story is about a prince. Many years ago, he was born with what they call a hunchback, somewhat deformed, was ashamed of himself. And his father was ashamed of him. And he never left the palace. And on his 10th birthday, his father came to him and said, son, what can I get you for your birthday? He said, well, Dad, he said, I tell you what I'd like for you to do for me. I'd like for you to build a statue of me down in the courtyard, that I can look at it every day. And his dad thought that was sad for him to ask him to build a statue of himself that he can look at it every day. And he said, son, why would you want me to build a statue of yourself in the condition you're in? He said, no, Dad. Said, I don't want you to build a statue of me bent over with this hump in my back, but I want you to build a statue of me if I was straight and I had no hump in my back. And his dad thought that was even worse for him to say that. But the dad did put a statue of the young man at the age of 10, and he would go to that window every day and look at himself standing straight without the hump. He would stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch. On his 18th birthday, the young man walked out of his room, out of the palace, and stood eyeball to eyeball to that statue. On his 18th birthday, he was no longer a hunchback. It is amazing how the will of man can achieve anything that he desires if the effort and the faith is there. Let me share you another story. Here's an elderly man with a small business, a hot dog stand. And he was able to do a good living with his hot dog stand until he decided one day that he was going to do another hot dog stand. And he opened that one up, and that was doing fine. Money was coming in, making twice as what he was making with one stand. And he had another brilliant idea, say, if I could have 2 stands, why can't I have 3 or 4 stands? So he was making preparation to open up his 3rd location until his son came home from college one summer. And he began to help his dad at the hot dog stand. And the conversation went this way. Said, Dad, what are you doing? He said, why are you thinking about adding more stands? Don't you know we are in a recession? that people are not buying anything now? And the dad looked at the son. He said, well, my business doing fine. This is why I'm thinking about adding more stands that I can feed more people and make more money. The son said, Dad, you can't do that. You cannot do that. You need to begin to cut back because of the recession. Don't invest no more money. Don't try to grow your business anymore. Just stop doing what you're doing. So the dad began to cut back. He forgot about the third stand, and obviously he forgot about the fourth stand. And eventually the second location closed. And then eventually the first location went out of business as well. You know, the moral of that story is that you have to be very careful of who you listen to. Negative thinking produces negative results. And the individuals don't mean any harm, but they come from a different perspective in terms of mindset. They are basically dream stealers. You have to be very careful about who you listen to. And let me tell you the last story. This one is quite interesting. There was a farmer, had a pretty good size chicken yard. And one day an eagle was flying real low and dropped an egg by accident, and it landed in the chicken yard. And the chicken saw the egg and with instinct assumed the egg was one of her eggs. So she rolled the egg over to the nest and sat on it, and until the little eagle hatched. And the little eagle grew to a biddy and began to play around with the other little biddies in the chicken yard. And the little eagle occasionally would look up at an eagle in the sky that was flying over the chicken yard and said within himself, I sure would like to be an eagle. I sure would like to be able to fly everywhere and get out of this chicken yard. You know, the moral of that story is that we all have eagles in us. But somebody need to remind us that we are eagles and not chickens. That you can fly. That you can be, you can have, and you can become anything that you want to become. So don't let the dream stealers and don't let the negative thinking people cause you to be far less than what your purpose was when you was born. This is Lonnie Bowman with Inspirational Quotes. Thank you.